Okay, come. Let's grab a seat, guys. So we're here to talk football.
Yep.
Very quickly, your reactions. If we talk about the state of Singapore football today, if I have you rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, what number would you give it? Tenga?
5.
Yeah, around 5.
Probably the same, but I would say it's hard to give it a number, but I would say can be better, much better.
Frankly speaking, I would say 4.
Okay.
The results have not been forthcoming. That is the thing. And football is a results business, right? So I think there's so much more work to be done.
4 as well. I think on and off the pitch, there's much to improve.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 5s and 4s. That's about where we start. So we've heard a lot about what's been happening with the Singapore football scene. There are many different things being done to try and, well, literally change the game. Maybe, Minister, you want to start first? Is this going to be any different from what's been done before?
Well, Steve, look, we've got a bold, ambitious project with UTR. I think we've embarked on measures that we've really never done before, all the way through the spectrum of youth, from those who are 7, 8 years old, all the way through to the late teens. We think that looking after the youth spectrum, building a strong pipeline, having a big base of players is the most sustainable way to rebuild football in Singapore. And I would say, maybe to address your question as to why we are doing this, let me speak as a football fan. I see many Singaporeans resonate with football. They feel up when the team does well. They feel very down when the team doesn't do well. I'm like that too. I remember the days of the Dream Team in the 90s. I was in Shah Alam in 94. Almost 10 years later, I was in Bukit Jalil for Lions 12. And I can feel that, the atmosphere, the impact it has on Singapore. So we are really doing this because we want to see football slowly but surely get back to where it used to be, and if not, surpass what it used to be. And we feel that the most sustainable way of doing this is not to try and have quick fixes, but to build from the base. We want kids who are interested in football to see a career in football. We want them to realize their aspirations. We want them not to have to choose so much between the academic path and the sporting path. And if we can get all this right, I think we can be on our way to seeing better results in football in some time. It's not going to be an overnight project. It won't happen tomorrow, but give it some time, and I think we will see some results.
I totally agree, because I think for the past 10 years I've been talking about youth development. We have to focus on the youth development, youth players and stuff like that. Finally, it's happening, and me myself is coaching the under 12 and the youth level. For them to play 30 over games or 20 over games week in, week out, we prepare them for the future where you're going to play week in, week out. Japan used to come to Singapore to play against Milo before. When the principal of our Milo soccer school say, you are representing your country, right? That gives you a different, I don't know how to explain your goosebumps and stuff like that, right? So we try to instill this passion in these boys. That when you play football, you represent your country. So when you're playing in this league, you're actually building up this the ecosystem of youth players. So we need to push them, instill this mentality in them. Because recently we played the Sultan Selangor Cup. We played against a veteran. Fandi is 60, Malik is 60, I'm 50 plus. We joke, we laugh. But the minute we walk into the dressing room, the minute the Sama Ali pitcher say, this is the lineup, they have this switch where everybody starts to be silent and getting prepared. Because we can see the desire, the passion there. So this is what I want to instill in our young boys.
And that is key, starting them young. Yes. That seems to be the key here. What's your view on that?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, in the past we have the COE under 16 National Football Academy. So those things have sort of been tried in the past. It didn't really work out. So what is going to make it different this time around? That's the thing that I want to know.
I feel that, Stanley, your point is a valid one. Perhaps the biggest change we're going to make is that in UTR, we go back to basics and start broad. Build a pipeline that is from a big pool of players. Like Rafi says, right? Now you have young kids playing week in, week out. The experience he talks about as a veteran in the Selangor Cup. When you can bring that down to the experience of 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boys and girls, having that feeling from the time they're young, playing week in, week out. SYL gives 30 matches a week to 4,000 kids. That is the best way of growing the base. And from there you have SFAs and then NDCs in a very structured way so that we can really marshal the talent into one space. And of course, the best of the youths, they get selected and they go on a scholarship, on a UTR scholarship to the US or to Spain. And I think this gives us a sustainable platform to rebuild football again.
So it sounds like it's more exposure, more chances to play, because it's one thing where the more you play, the better you get, right? And if you play with better players, even better, right? Venga?
Well, I started in 2016. By the last 5 years, my small club has produced 9 SPL players playing in the under-21 league. I'm very proud of this because very important, what am I doing in youth development? And my aim was to produce players to play in the Premier League. And there are 9 boys and there are another 5 boys. So a total about 14, but the 9 boys were registered with me. I love to see them become very good players.
You know, Steve, I remember from the days when I was at FAS and of course in the last couple of years when I was at MCCY, Wenger would send me videos of this boy playing in some, I'm not even sure, hard court sometimes futsal or on a weekend. And he would send me, hey, this boy, look out for him.
All of them has gone on to SPL clubs.
Yeah, and part of the thinking behind SYL for UTR was, I said, look, these boys need a chance to play week in, week out and develop that skill and have top coaches, people like Rafi and others, come in, mentor them. It's not just about coaching, it's about showing them the path, and ex-national players like Rafi play a big role in that. Telling them, don't worry, this is the path for you, this is how I see it happening for you. Mentor them when they're down, cheer them when they're winning. I think all of this makes a big difference to the psyche of a young footballer in Singapore.
What about the current system, the current leadership now at FAS? I mean, if we have FAS, why did we start UTR? Because who leads what? Or are they same but different,
Well, Steve, I look at UTR as a national passion. It's a passion project for our country and something that we have to get behind. Is it just an FAS project? No. Is it just a government project? No. Is it a fans project? No. I think it's all of this coming together with us, ex-national players, media, parents, kids, the whole coaching system, and all of the sports science that we are going to throw behind sports needs to come behind this, because it's really a national project for us to bring football back to where it was. It won't happen overnight, I keep emphasizing. It won't happen in a straight line. We may be up and down, we'll change course halfway, but we need the support of everyone in Singapore to make this work.
So why is there this distinction between FAS and UTR? Some are asking, because FAS has been around for many years, why not have them run the program?
FAS is part of UTR.
Ah, okay.
They are part of UTR. It's not separate.
Okay.
It has to be.
FAS is an administrative organization.
Yeah.
I think UTR is now the parent of the SYL, and they run the project because of the fields, all the people around. Like what Rafi said, 4,000. In fact, I was telling the TD, every age group should have 4,000 players playing. Can you imagine, from 4,000 each age group, you have 40 to 50 elite players coming through. That's how it works in the UK.
The catchment must be big, Steve, right?
But we have a challenge as being a small country. So,
well, it's true. But you see, 4,000 players now playing in the SYL. We've only started SYL for about a year.
Yeah.
So we do have potential to grow. And it's important. SYL is structured. You play in SYL, you get spotted, you go to the SFAs, you get spotted, you go to the NDCs, JNDCs, and then there's a pipeline for you. And we send our players to overseas competitions a couple of times every year so that they can hone their skills against different competition, foreign competition. And when they get through, then the pipeline and the pathway to the national team is there.
Okay, Eddie, haven't heard from you yet. So as a fan watching all of this play out, in Singapore, what's your take?
I think Minister has touched on UTR being a national initiative involving many stakeholders. I'm just wondering, from the fans' point of view, is there any disconnect or is there a harmony between all the stakeholders? For example, there's top club academies, there's school teams and all that. Are there competing demands for our young footballers?
Look, Eddie, even in the top leagues in the world, you hear of coaches arguing with one another. National team, is it priority, national window, or clubs want to preserve their players. Sometimes people become injured so as not to play in international weekends. We have all of that. So competition for players actually is a good thing. And I see this as progress. If you are fighting over players, you are wanting players to keep to yourself, you want to develop them, you want them to play for your team, it tells us that there are players that...
This guy's worth fighting for.
Worth fighting for,
yeah.
Right? So I see that as a good thing. But to your point about, is there cohesion in this? I think we need for everyone to support this project. Along the way, we will have disagreements. We will not agree all the time.
Yeah.
I was just telling Rafi and Venga just now before we started that it's a bit like family. We all have the same philosophy and same direction. We all have the same goals. we have the same values, but how we get there, we will fight, argue all the time. But I think it is in the common interest of making sure we arrive in the same destination at the same time. And I think that's the value of this project. It's a project that I hope can unite the different stakeholders in Singapore, can get the backing of different stakeholders, and we push Singapore football through this project.
I want to move on and talk about some of the business side of football, because actually football receives the most funding from the government in terms of all the sports out there. So many people are asking, well, you get all this money, where's it going, what's happening to it? Maybe they shouldn't receive government funding because some of that hunger is missing when they are sort of getting a budget each year without having to do anything. So what is your take on that?
We are not quite ready at this point in time, but we are hoping that we will get our clubs ready, prepared for a time when they will have to make their own bread. And what I mean by that is they will have to develop their own young players, like Wenger says. A lot of the European clubs, clubs in the European leagues, develop their own young players, and they see that as a value proposition, not just from a sporting perspective, but economically as well, commercially. And I think there's a role for our clubs to be doing that, and I want to encourage that. I think they also need to develop their own fan base, their affinity with their own fans. You ask Eddie, he associates with the clubs because there's a strong bond between the club and the fans, and we need to build that up so that the clubs then can live on their own, survive on their own, and after a while they will feel that there's independence, and then we can start thinking of privatizing.
Absolutely correct. What he said is the community must bond, and there are 200,000 people in each community to support one football club.
Yeah.
Can you imagine you have 20,000 people just supporting your local club? Fantastic, that's the way to go.
But do you think that if we make our clubs private, then they are forced to sort of work harder? They're forced to say, how am I going to get salaries this month? So they're really thinking out of the box and doing whatever they need to,
I think
for me, it's like at this moment, right, it's still very new and very raw, right? Okay, talk about the SYL. If we talk about the SYL that we are playing, every weekend, right, I think parents are coming to watch.
Hundreds of parents.
And in the beginning, it was only parents, I must say. But now at Serangoon Stadium, people are standing outside, public are standing outside and watching. So we are getting interest from all these people. So I think maybe in 1 or 2 years' time, this team becomes big, players become better, and then maybe one day we have the Lion City consistently every year.
Yeah.
Because youth football will attract a lot of interest. And then from there, everything will fall into place. Because then the SPL and everything will fall into place.
But Lion City Sailors is a private club.
Yeah, correct. Yes, but what Minister said, we are not there yet. Right?
Okay.
So we must start building, because now at the moment we are talking about our football first, right? We need to get the franchise correct. We need to get the franchise where people will come and say, oh, this is a good team. Then everything will fall into place.
Eddie?
I think off the pitch as well, I think sometimes when I try to get newcomers to the game, converts to the local game, sometimes we see a bit of trouble because it may not be as professional as it looks. For example, the FAS website, when it comes to Singapore Premier League website, there's no list of top scorers even. If you look at Unleash the Raw's website as well, there's a season preview of the league 2 years ago, but then last year there's no season preview, and then this year as well there's no season preview. So I wonder if these are the things that are impediments to people getting corporate funding.
Yeah, so professionalism is not just on the pitch. I think it's off the field as well.
Field as well.
I think it's a whole package. So when people look at the league now, and if there are such experiences, people look at people and say, oh my God, if I look at this, I compare it to...
Correct.
I mean, we are spoiled for choice. I mean, the consumers are spoiled for choice.
Yeah.
You have European football playing on cable, on TV every week. And you look at it, and then you compare and say,
I think
our league looks like a compound league, right?
we had a conversation earlier about how I think even the 1997 broadcast standards look a bit better than now, and it's a bit strange for us to see that.
But you must understand, we're only 26 years old in the league now. The leagues, you're talking about hundreds of years old. We still got some way to go before we achieve what we want to achieve.
But considering that Singapore is such a nation who prides,
yeah.
we pride ourselves on innovation, on being
But
forward-looking and everything.
There is a history of football in Singapore, which we actually overlooked for some time.
So does that mean we need another 50 years to...
You don't need 50 years, you need to get it right.
Well, let me turn the question on its head. Since Stanley is from CNA and so are you,
Yeah.
why don't CNA go down and cover the games in detail
what you used to do
with
before.
6 camera angles, with instant
think we
replay,
used
and then
to
you
cover it,
package
right?
the matches and put them up on social media as highlights. Why don't we do that? I mean, I talk about the media as being a big partner for us. We can get the media involved. Once you do that, I think fans like Eddie will be able to convert even more because they'll now be able to show them a website that says, you can see the top scorers, you can even see the goals and the highlights. Oh, we can do that.
Okay, let's then.
Now that's a chicken and egg situation, right? The media will do that, commit our time, our resources to doing it if there's entertainment. If there's entertainment value, there's news value. So the football must improve.
I tell you one thing. Remember the game we played in the AFF Suzuki Cup where we lost to Indonesia? Remember?
Yeah.
Remember?
4-2.
When we got red card and stuff like that. Okay.
Two
I was
red
watching
cards.
it. Yeah, I was watching it at home. Okay. Every week we watch English Premier League and have games and stuff like that, right? But on that day, I was watching at home, and my flat was quiet. And then when that red card happened, and Shadan scored that goal, remember?
Yes, I
that
remember.
free kick happened. My whole HDB block noise, That one I heard in 1970s.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm trying to tell you is, local people, all Singaporeans, they want Singapore to win. Their heart is for Singapore. Even though they are sport for choice, they watch English Premier League. The sense of belonging they don't have, right? They just watch. Today, I'm Liverpool fan. Liverpool lose, I'm Man U fan tomorrow. They are like that. But the heart for Singapore, right? The heart for Singapore, right? I see, like, you can imagine when Shadan score, the whole flat is noisy.
But gentlemen, if our Singapore team is in World Cup, for example, oh my gosh, I tell you, we will all be fully there to support.
Steve, let me just stop you there.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be the World Cup. Okay? If tomorrow we are in the other AFF and we are competing, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, playing well against Vietnam, I tell you, people will tune in. This experience will be there.
Since we have mentioned the World Cup, we just need to clarify this because for a long time we keep hearing World Cup 2034, right? People think, are we going to be there? And a lot of people thinking, come on man, how realistic is that? So maybe you want to address this and help us understand,
Well, Steve, you said something about the World Cup as well. What do you think of the World Cup as a target?
I guess for many it's the game for football, right?
Look, this project is not about getting to the World Cup.
Okay.
It's about rebuilding from the base, as I've said just now, making sure that we've got a strong foundation, challenging for many years. If I told you, look guys, we'll get into the World Cup 1 year, qualify, but thereafter we'll be back in where we are again, will you be happy?
No.
No. We want this to be a sustainable project, and every year we must get better and better and better. And we must always tell ourselves, it is there for us to try. Football, like Stanley says, is a sport about winning.
Yep.
If you don't go in thinking that you might win, you might do well, you might qualify, you might be able to achieve your targets, then it's hard to start. So we must always have aspirations, dreams, targets, and we build on that. But fundamentally, this project is about going back to the basics, back to the grassroots, rebuilding our base, ensuring that we have a big pool of players and a strong pipeline for years to come.
You see, Minister, the issue is we have sort of seen this before. We have seen Go 2010. Go 2010 was a similar project.
We produced a lot of good players.
Yeah, exactly. You produced quite a lot of good players, but it sort of started and then it stopped within 5 years. How can we actually sustain this Go 2034?
Go 2010 and the earlier generations, we stopped and started for a number of reasons. First, I think it was also the fact that we didn't progress in the Malaysian League. And second, I think for a period of time, in the early 2000s, we relied a lot on naturalised players. And I think it was quite successful with several naturalised players, and we did win a couple of AFFs in that period of time. And I think this, in some ways, masked the problem. It papered over the cracks. The real fundamental problem was we weren't building a pipeline of young players. And then the moment we stopped having naturalised players, that got exposed. And I feel that was the problem, and that's why UTR is meant to address that. So it's different from the previous projects in that we are really fundamentally investing in the young again. And I go back to my point, Stanley. I don't think we have seen in Singapore a project of this scale where we are trying to open up the base as much as we can. In 1 year, SYL sees 4,000 boys and girls playing, 30 weeks a season. We have JNDC, we have NDC, we have 14 SFAs for the better players with a clear pipeline and pathway into the national team. And of course the UTR scholars, which you've seen, Steve. So I think this is perhaps the most comprehensive plan for grassroots football that we've ever seen. And I hope that this, in years to come, will be successful. You've got to get behind it because don't forget, these are young players. And their morale will be affected if each time they don't do well, we get criticized, right? So I think we have to put them in an environment, not in a bubble, but in an environment where we are nurturing, we are encouraging, and we push them along.
No, my boys lost to JDT, big scoreline, but it was a start.
Yeah.
Then slowly they picked up, and they are doing well in Division 3, and they are coming up again. Of course, JDT had a head start over us many years. So we start now. In 5 to 6 years, we will be on equal terms with them. That's about it.
So if we wait, we think we can see some results in about 5 to 6 years? Some
yeah,
of the young players who are now 14, 15,
Yeah, I strongly believe. Yeah, because now we have got about 2 batch has gone to Spain, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the girls in America and stuff. But these boys that goes to Spain in 2-3 years, when they come back to Singapore, now we got maybe about 8 players, maybe 10 players there.
Yeah.
When we come back to Singapore, we have got about 8 players who have played at a very high level. That will rub off with the younger generation, with the one that is in Singapore. And then the mentality will change, right? You look at the Fundi's children, right? How their mentality, because they go abroad and play. They come back, the mentality is different, and it rubs off, right?
Yeah.
So now we have to be really patient, because I feel now, I put it to you, Stanley, okay, you say there's 2010. Yes, we have to learn from our mistake. There's no continuity there. So now we have to make sure that we have continuity. Haris Harun is the model for us, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now the coach's job is to make another 2 or 3 Haris Harun, another 2 or 3 Iksan, another 2 or 3 Ilhan, Safwan, all this. So this is our part to help. But for me to tell you now, for a person to come up and step up and say, I am going to change football, it takes a lot of guts. Nobody can do it. So for him to come up and say, no, I want to do something for Singapore football. I think for us here, as for the public also, I urge them to salute, be patient, we will work together.
We should ask the fan, do you have patience to wait for 4 to 5 years?
I'm a bit of an outlier. I've always have patience because I'm an Arsenal fan. So, there's tons of years where we become so close.
A team to look after. The Singapore Under-19 team. I watched them grow into what they are now today.
Yes.
You watch them, and if they go a few places to train and come back, they are a very good chance to win the SEA Games in the next few years.
We've got a lot of talented boys.
Yeah.
But now the problem now, because they are not used to playing at high-level football, right? So when they go to high level with all this media attention and all this, professional way of warming up, it gets to them. And then all the lactic acid all go 5 minutes, they cannot run already. So, but if they keep on playing, right, all this high-level game, I'm very, very sure that we can do something.
Hey, we won the Lion City Under-16 a few years ago. Sundaram, I was part of the team as a manager.
Yeah.
Actually, Minister, I got one question for you. So now we're talking about we need to wait for 3, 4 years, 5 years before we can actually start to see results. But now we have to balance short-term success, to pacify some fans, and then we have to, and we need to, of course, have long-term plan, and we need to be patient, right? So for this short-term success, of course, you mentioned earlier that when we won the AFF Cup, we had naturalized citizens.
So Kashmir.
Is this going to, is this going to be another track that we're going to, go down again?
I prefer to say that our focus should be on building our own natural youth players. That is the most sustainable and I think the most relatable to Singapore. And occasionally we might supplement with a few who've been here, who not just as a footballer but as a person can relate to Singapore and Singaporeans. I think that's important because I don't want a team that is made up of people who wear my jersey, have my flag, but I don't know them. You take, for example, Indonesia. They've done very well now in the World Cup qualifiers. But 10 of their last starting 11 are not born in Indonesia, as far as I can tell. I want to build a Singapore team that is Singaporean by culture and Singaporean in identity. And if I can bring some foreign players who have that connection to supplement the team, we will. But our focus is really on building up the Singapore core.
So at some point in time, we should be able to have our own full team. I have to ask you about this path of sustainability. From the youth league, then it comes an age where I have to ask you about national service for the boys. Because they start at 14, 4 or 5 years, they'll be 18, 19. Some people feel that that's a real break in just at the peak, So how are we going to try and...
I think we can navigate this. I mean, if you just look at many examples, look at the Fundi boys, right? If you are able to finish at 17, 18 and go into national service, I think you can be done by 19 and your career is ahead of you.
Yeah, quite
And
true.
I would say, rather than looking at it as a negative, I would say, look, this is our national position, our national policy. We have got greater objectives in Singapore to serve, and national service is a part of that. So rather than keep saying that it's negative, it's 2 years away, it's 1.5 years away, why not take the positives? A boy going through national service changes mindset and mentality, turns into a fighter, into someone who is passionate about Singapore, caring for the teammates. All of these, as I said just now, are values that we want to see on the pitch. And a national service boy comes out with all this. And I don't see a downside. I think you might take a little bit away from training and during BMT, but I think we can accommodate. And I think as a country, as a sport, we can accommodate national service and still do well in our sporting ambitions.
We have the SAF under 21. I don't think the police are playing under 21. But I think if these teams play with all the best players playing in there, it will definitely improve everything in football.
So accommodate in one way is to allow for maybe
Allow them to
a
play.
higher level of training while they're
Allow them to
serving.
play while they're in
Yeah.
army. You know,
Okay.
right now we have arrangements where, you know, our national footballers get time off for training and for overseas competition. All that still helps us to fulfill our overall national mission of national service and our duty, but at the same time accommodate a space for development of sport.
In a way, it's as if they were playing for a private club where they have to be certain places at certain
Yeah.
time. It is a bit of mixing and matching the schedule.
You look at our other athletes as well, right? Look at our recent Olympian, Jonathan. He qualified for the Olympics twice, 2 times over whilst he was serving his national service. It's doable, Steve, it's doable.
Yep.
We
Okay.
just have to put our heart to it.
One more thing, same path of sustainability, the Singapore Premier League. So we're saying these youth now play at a higher professional level. Then they end up playing in the SPL, which impression isn't really at that level. Will that then sort of end that trajectory upwards?
Actually, the SPL, there are all good players there.
Yeah.
It's just that the media coverage isn't there to bring up all this.
But how does the media coverage
It must-
change whether the level of playing is
Because
professional or not?
if I'm a player and I want to play in front of a camera, it's a showmanship also.
Right.
So he plays very hard. He knows the camera is watching him. But here, I know I watched 1 or 2 games. The speed and everything are good, but the crowd isn't there. I think the SYL is a platform where the crowd is slowly coming back, and soon you will see the flocks of fans coming to watch their sons playing in the team or their friends playing.
So it sounds like you're talking about the business side, the marketing, because everyone knows certain famous players, they've got Instagram accounts
I
and
know
things like
Rafi
that,
when
right?
you're 16 years old, Heidi Iskandar at 14 years old, his brother at 13 years old.
Okay.
So already at my level at 96, I'm already watching all these young boys. And I used to take them and play for Woodlands Wellington, and we were the best supported team
Okay.
at the time because of these attractive players I had in the team.
Yeah, the challenge is if you ask the average Singaporean out there who are national players today, they would not be able to name
Correct.
many.
I agree that certain things like the websites are important, the Facebooks are important,
Yeah.
where you promote your player, you write about him, you talk about him. Okay, but I think that's not happening, that's all. That's the downside of the whole thing. So we need to work on this part, where we must encourage, in fact the SYL, not just show fights here, show that. There are so many good things which happen in SYL,
Okay.
but there are certain people who only want to watch all the wrong things.
Right.
Okay, why am I still here at 64? Because I love my country.
Yeah.
See, he's laughing, no?
I mean,
I'm
it's
64. I
true,
love
64,
my football
you
so
can,
much.
you know, but
I want my Singapore
Yeah.
team to do well before I go away.
You're also here for the after game, the futsal. We didn't tell you the 5-a-side later. Yeah.
No, but look, Steve, I would say this,
Yeah.
Eddie's a fan, Stanley's in broadcast, you are in broadcast, I'm in government, ex-national player, coach. I think fundamentally we are in football because we are all fans. We're all fans of football and we want to see Singapore succeed. Like Rafi says, everybody is dying for our Singapore team to succeed. And many of our fans criticize, grumble, complain because they want us to do better. And I get that. I understand that completely. I feel that sometimes, oftentimes. But this is a project that will not happen overnight. If you want to go back to basics, you want to rebuild, it's going to take some time. And meanwhile, like Stanley says, we have to protect the whole football ecosystem. If you start throwing brickbats all the time, after a while, young players get influenced as well. They get
Correct.
affected.
yes, true.
So overall, I think we need a nurturing environment, encouraging system. Like Venga says, some people just like to throw stones and throw bricks without a constructive solution. I would say, if you have a good idea, rather than criticize online, come and join the team. Come and give your ideas. Work together, bring everyone together, and I think in time to come we will see, if not 2034, at some point we will have a team that we can be proud of, we can see winning. And like he says, we lost that game against Indonesia.
Yeah.
We missed the last minute penalty as well. But
The
when I
passion,
was in
the-
I was in the stadium. When we left the stadium, they were singing.
Yes.
We lost the semi-final, but we were singing.
What a fight back. it
So
was.
I think Singaporeans don't necessarily only need results, don't need to win, they need to see heart and fight and spirit. And when we can achieve that, I think we can
Yeah, I
go
think we saw
somewhere.
that in the game of Singapore against China. We didn't win, but it was fantastic, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And we all want it to work.
We want it to work. You know, guys, look, which team has not seen a dip? You look at the top international teams, look at the top clubs. Even your Liverpool, Man U, even your England has always been coming home for a long time. I think it's not so much the dip that is the worry per se, it's how you respond that is critical. It's how we fix this, how we respond, and how we have a plan to come back that's critical. And I share Rafi's optimism, Wenger as well. I think if we look at our boys today, we've got a good batch.
Right.
We now have to give them a good environment, support them so that they can do well for us.
So we've got a plan, it sounds like it. Maybe we should come back again, what, 5, 7 years from now? We can see.
I think the first step, the SEA Games, is we must try to win it or reach the semi-finals. Then you see the fans coming back to us.
Okay, so the focus is on our youth, and I think it's important to encourage them and give them that sense, not have the mindset where if someone comes to you, your kid says, I want to play football for a living, and you go, I don't think so, right?
No, I mean, look, we don't want that kind of mindset for sport. And you heard what our PM have said about realizing our aspirations through our Kallang Our Life master plan. And we want to give sports a respectable name. We want to ensure that if you are a young person today and you want to build a career in sports, not just football, but any sport, that we will make sure that you have every resource we can give you to help you succeed. And it's also about building a broad ecosystem around the sport. You might not succeed as a top player or a top athlete, but you might be a coach or a TD, or you might be involved in the commercial side of sport. All of that helps us to overall lift sport, and that includes football. So the whole Kallang Life plan, with our focus on sports, focus on sports science, making sure that we professionalize the entire daily training environment of athletes, includes football.
The fans do have patience as long as they see the plan in place. So I think, Minister, thank you for sharing all that you've shared. And hopefully, once this message has got out to more people, then the stakeholders can work hand in hand.
I think, Eddie, I wanted to say this, the fans are a big part of this whole project. Without the fans, football is nothing. Whether it is a fan like yourself, supporting Arsenal, even then, or our fans like Singer Brigade, who are diehards, and I salute them. They are there every game, win, lose or draw, they are there. I think we need fans like that, and we need to encourage that. We need to nurture these fans and give them a reason for them to keep coming back to support the national team.
I think as a role of the media, I think we adopt a wait and see, to be honest. We'll look at how the project, we are definitely supportive of UTR, but let's wait and see. If it doesn't work, we'll have to ask questions, and we'll ask tough questions. Let's hope it works.
I think that's important. The media has to hold the people who run UTR accountable. So ask tough questions. Fans deserve to ask tough questions. They deserve answers. It's just that I'm saying give it some time for it to mature and allow the roots to grow so that there's a strong foundation. You started, Steve, by asking how is Singapore football?
Yeah.
Most of us agree that it is 4 or 5 out of 10. So we all agree that it needs to be much better. We start with that kind of base, but it's a project that needs everyone's support. Whether you're a fan or a coach or a player or media, it needs support, indeed from the government as well. So we will support it. We will put what we can behind it, because you can either decide that we're not very good today and don't do much about it, in which case, after a while, football will die a natural death in Singapore. We don't want to see that. All of us speaking as fans want to see that. So we got to do something about it. And this is our project, this is our plan. We hope that Singapore and Singaporeans and all the stakeholders can get behind it.
And that's why we're talking about it today. We all hope to see that day when we can say we are 8, 9, 10, and I think UTR is one step in that long journey. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming and sharing your thoughts.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you.